This is the Nightside Project. I'm Ethan Millard. We are committed to helping you finish your commute happy. I've got Andy Farnsworth joining me for this episode. Andy's one of our great colleagues here at KSL News Radio. Andy, thanks for doing this.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Ethan, on Nightside.
Deeply appreciate it. I know Alex will appreciate knowing that the podcast is in good hands.
Hey, you know what? I had a bunch of kids of my own, so I'm happy to help out a fella who wants to spend some quality time.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely what he's doing. Listen, to help everyone finish their commute happy, I've got a great Zen headline coming up.
Okay.
It's a Zen headline. It's pretty straightforward. It's about a major celebrity who, on the fly and in a very public way,
Shocking that a celebrity did something in a public way.
Just started paying bills for other people.
That
it's actually cool. And this is verifiable stuff. This isn't one of those, I'm going to donate everything to charity, and then no one can discover the charity that was donated. It doesn't exist. So it's not one of those things. This is a real deal. So it's cool. It's going to help everyone finish their commute happy. It's a little bit unlikely. I think I don't want to say surprised by the celebrity because I don't know them personally. They may be like this.
Hey,
But
the whole point of celebrity is to not know them and yet judge them 100%.
Yeah, that's right. And that's kind of what this Zen headline fights back against a little bit.
Okay.
But first, I want to gain a little bit from your car experience because you basically run the traffic center here at KSL News Radio. And I want to tell you, with what?
With much help.
With much help.
I got to give credit to my team.
Nevertheless, own it as the boss. This was submitted by John on Twitter. He thought we'd be interested in this story, and I definitely was. The story is published on Jalopnik, which is one of the big car enthusiast websites. Jalopnik, yeah, and it was written by a man who had a very strange experience meeting his neighbor. Now, I'm going to just read from you a little bit from the first paragraph, okay?
Okay.
So when he meets his neighbor, the neighbor knows a lot about cars, specifically German cars, so he goes over to talk to him, ask him a question about his Volkswagen. Before we get to your car questions, my former next-door neighbor, Terrence, said, I need to tell you both something. My wife left me. My kids won't talk to me. I lost my job. I embezzled almost $500,000 because I'm addicted to BMWs and have been hiding them all over the state. I'll probably be going to prison soon.
Well,
now you've got a favorite car, right?
That's a conversation starter.
You've got a favorite car.
I have a favorite make, but I don't necessarily have a favorite specific
What's your
car.
favorite make?
I am an Audi guy.
Okay, Audi's great. I'm a Cadillac guy. Love Cadillac ever since I was a child. This was the specific BMW that this man loved. This here was the classic 2002, from back in the 60s. This really
that's an old car.
It's an old car, but he loved them. He wound up buying, he said he owned 50 of them. Pieces, parts, all over the place. He spent so much money on it that he actually started embezzling from his company. And over the course of just a couple of years, he claimed, if I remember correctly, over 120 extra paychecks, all of which went to buying these cars or parts for these cars. And he was
That
literally
man's got a problem.
Really got a problem.
A compulsive spending problem.
But I want to ask you a question here. I'll leave this up.
Okay.
I'll leave up this picture of this beautiful 2002. Kind of a slate gray color, very nice car. My wife loves these cars. So
Really?
I get the attraction.
From the
they're very
60s?
cool. Yeah, they're very cool.
In a museum, maybe.
Is there a moral problem with being a major BMW owner?
Is there a moral problem?
Does the BMW brand bring some sort of moral issue to our communities? Because you have this story of this guy, okay?
Okay.
But this isn't the only one. Let me show you another photograph here.
At least from what you've described.
But let me just show you another photograph
Okay.
here, all right? This was actually locally another situation. This was just last week. You know what this is? It's a very beautiful white newer model BMW.
With a smashed windshield.
Because it was involved in a hit and run. Police only just identified and found the guy that did this. And this BMW driver nailed a pedestrian.
Yeah.
And then took off.
Okay. How old was the driver?
In his 20s.
Okay.
They killed a man on that windshield. That windshield right there. A man died on that windshield, and that guy took off.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, I remember this. I remember covering this on the Nightside Project because it was a very, very big deal at the time. And you may remember this as well. I'll show you another picture of a BMW. Let me zoom it in a little bit. On this windshield, a man was very seriously injured when another man in his 20s, hit a cyclist. He actually got out of his car, opened his trunk because there were witnesses. He actually got out of his car, opened his trunk so that they couldn't read his license plate, and then took off with his trunk open.
Wow. So he really meant to get away from that one.
And isn't
Because
there...
I can imagine, and I never want to go through this, obviously, but I can imagine the panic that you feel when you hit somebody. I can just imagine the panic that you feel, because it's a panic for a whole bunch of reasons. It's a panic for, I'm sure the first second was, please don't tell me that was what I thought it was. And then when it kind of sinks in that, I think I just hit a person.
Right.
Then you got that panic of, what do I do? And I'm sure for a lot of people, it's, did anybody see that? And if not, I'm getting out of here. I got to, at the very least, collect myself. Now,
Alex,
that's the wrong response. You got to own up to it. Because that person might still be alive, and you've got to stop right there. No matter what happens next, you got to make sure that that person is not going to have their last breath from the front of your car.
Alex Kirry posted on Instagram or on Twitter a picture of a very beautiful, brand new BMW that he shot a photo of because he was just going crazy in traffic. Zigzag, 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 in and out, in and out, in and out. Finally got up ahead of Alex at a stoplight, and so he took a photo of it and said, this guy going to kill someone. And there's kind of a reputation, isn't there, with BMW drivers?
There is certainly a stereotype.
There's a stereotype.
There is a stereotype. And I actually know, I have a couple friends who own Beamers. One I can think of in particular is closer to the stereotype. This friend of mine, I don't think would ever do something like that. But is there an aggression in his driving? Yes.
Let me redeem BMW though.
Okay.
Because you're right, there are stereotypes. But you love Audi.
I do.
And you know what Audi's starting to get now that their
a
cars are
reputation
more
like this. I
now,
can believe it.
Because guess what? Now Audi is the car that young 20-somethings with money are buying.
Really?
Now they're buying Audis. Audi's making some great cars.
Oh, I love Audis. I mean, I've never owned one that was younger than 10 years old. But
so maybe we have a chance to redeem BMW here, because they've kind of suffered with this stereotype. But really, isn't it a 20-something male stereotype?
They play that up. Okay, so the driver, I believe, is the 20-something male stereotype. But don't tell me that Beamer doesn't try to trade on prestige to try to sell their cars.
They make it's a prestige vehicle for sure.
Yes.
But I don't think BMW markets it to 20-somethings, because 20-somethings don't have money.
They don't market the new ones to 20-somethings, that's for sure.
They market the Beamers to successful middle-aged men.
Yeah, because
successful
have you seen
older
the price
men.
tag on the new ones?
And that makes them coveted by the younger men. That's what happens. So really, none of this can be BMW's fault. Let me, though, redeem them.
None of it can be BMW's fault.
But, well, I'm just trying to kind of walk through this a little bit.
Anytime you create a luxury brand, you're trying to create a prestige to help you sell it. But not only that, but also to help you sell it for a greater price than it should go for. I use as a weird example. In the NBA right now, there's a guy who's about to get drafted named Lonzo Ball. His dad tried, and if you've followed anything about sports, you've heard about this guy. He played for UCLA in college. He's declared for the draft. His dad is one of the overbearing stage parents trying to create a brand for him and his two younger brothers.
Yeah.
The dad has said crazy things like the dad could beat Jordan in one-on-one and could have beat Jordan at one-on-one in his prime. And anyway, he gets tons of press time. Well, the biggest thing is his son's going to be one of the top draft picks.
Yeah.
He went to the shoe companies and said, we're not going to sign with you unless you make the shoe we say. We're going to charge this price, and essentially you're licensing our brand. You're not signing our son to be a spokesperson for you. You're licensing our brand to you. All the shoe companies said no. So it's the first time since shoes became a thing that one of the top draft picks is not going to be with one of the major shoe companies. Instead, they've unveiled a $500 sneaker.
His own
line, $500,
which I think is
per pair.
Brilliant.
And he says, "Look, we don't care if we don't sell to the average Joe. We want people to buy and wear these shoes to show that they can afford it more than other people.
Yeah, and
That's what BMW does.
Well, and that's where you start getting in these young people who only care about their image, who, you know, have some money, enough to buy a BMW, probably not much more than that. And then they get into this kind of trouble. But here's where I think
So when you talk morality, the morality is in the person who buys it.
Here's where I think BMW really gets redeemed. Okay. And
okay.
again, it's
And
by
I hope
one of their
so.
own
I hope
enthusiasts. Again, it's by one of their own enthusiasts, because that photo I showed you from a couple of years ago of the guy and he was a full-on frat boy.
The one who embezzled $500,000?
No, nailed the cyclist. The guy
right,
who embezzled $500,000 was like in his 50s.
I was going to say, a 20-year-old who can pull that off, that's impressive.
No, this guy's in his 20s. He got out, opened his trunk so that no one could read his license plate, and took off.
Okay.
The guy's a total frat boy. He took off because he was drunk.
Okay.
Right? But had presence of mind to
open his trunk and get back in and drive away, even though he
away.
couldn't apparently see out of his own windshield.
And so one of the witnesses was a young man named Jeff Phillips, also in his 20s, big-time BMW enthusiast. And he stayed and, you know, helped out a little bit, but wound up leaving because there were kind of a lot of people around, right? There were kind of a lot of people around. So, it's, you know, there's only a certain amount. They don't literally need everybody. And he wasn't right there close, and so he left. And then he was watching the news reports, and the police couldn't find the driver. They weren't even exactly sure what model BMW he was driving. No one had gotten the license plate, and, you know, people didn't know the cars. And it was actually a very rare special edition BMW. And Jeff was watching the news coverage and realized, I know exactly what car that is, and I bet it's the only one around.
Okay.
And so he was able to go to the police, give them information that they didn't have about the car, that only like serious BMW fans would know about. And that led them to the
you would recognize a special limited edition like that.
Yeah.
Knowing it's not a common thing to be
Yeah,
done.
it was only sold for like, you know, 1 year, 2 years. It was just recently, and super rare, very expensive car. And so he went and he was the linchpin. That's how they found the guy. And the guy had stashed his car in his grandmother's garage. And they were able to finally track it down. He told his grandmother he hit a deer or something like that. And because that's what you do, you know, when you're a frat boy, you run to your grandma when you get in trouble.
Well, because she's the only one who's not going to question it.
Well, and because your parents already know your stupid game.
Yeah.
You know, your parents already know your phony baloney frat boy game, and they're not. If you show up with a dented, smashed up car and you're all, hey, I hit a deer. Can I put this in your garage? Your parents are going to call the police because they raised you and they know that you're a moron. And so
you'd like to hope so. You'd really like to hope so.
Well, BMW drivers, I think, are going to love and hate this conversation.
No, I think they're mostly going to hate it because you're casting moral aspersions on all of them.
Well,
but that's okay as long as they listen, right?
They pop up so much. You know, they pop up so much.
That's why I said there's a reason that stereotypes exist. Fair and unfair, there's a reason that stereotypes exist.
I do fully expect sometime in the next 5 years, Andy, that you and I will have the conversation, and I'm gonna note this moment in my mind. I'm gonna remember it when you start lamenting the fact that Audi has such a poor reputation because its drivers are idiots, and that you loved Audi back when it was a respectable,
when it was pure.
Yeah. Now it's the frat boy car of choice.
I didn't know that frat boys were starting to like it. Darn it.
Oh yeah, man. 20-somethings love their Audis. It's because they're fast. And they look good, too.
They do look good.
And they're
safe. That's one of the reasons I like them.
And they're different from BMWs, so. All right, we're going to grab a quick break here. When we come back, we've got a Zen headline. We'll tell you about a celebrity who's just really going all out for her fans. It's awesome.